I want superheroes in my politics. Let me explain. I don't want politics in my superheroes, but rather I want superheroes in my politics. You see, there's a lot of discourse around whether or not we should have politics in our superheroes. And by politics, let's be honest, most people don't really care if you add some type of economic policy, if you talk about tariffs or something like that. But they do care about social politics being added into their superhero stories or their fiction in general, especially if these social politics are made up of modern day contrivances, so to speak, or modern day social issues. And that makes sense when you think about it. A lot of the modern day social issues wouldn't be able to be applied to a medieval village. After all, these are social issues. And unless you have the same social and cultural background, you probably wouldn't have as many of these issues. At least they would have a different tinge to them. While on the other hand, what I'm talking about is superheroes in my politics. And what I mean by that again is that when you have someone who can lift a mountain or who can move at speeds that you literally can't touch them, that weaponry is completely nothing to them. When you have someone who can read minds or someone who can heal back from any injury, all of a sudden, that person and that level of power that they have becomes inherently political. And by inherently political, I don't mean that automatically they have to be political. I mean that the political powers of the world have to think about them in that way. Again, imagine this. If China suddenly has a Superman-like figure, a figure who can fly, has super strength, and they're so durable that they can survive nukes, then we have to look at that politically. You can't deny that the US government or other governments who are more hostile to China wouldn't look at that as an issue. And you look at someone like Captain America, it only makes sense that other people would start to try to make Captain America or super soldier-esque people in their own countries just to try to make the balance of power a little bit more balanced. And that's something that I think is very cool about superheroes being involved in politics, or rather, not the exact opposite. I think that the fact that they have so much power would be, again, super interesting to explore. And the thing is, I can actually show multiple examples of that being incredibly cool. And all you get to look at is, of course, first and foremost, Justice League Unlimited, the TV show, and season 1 specifically. In season 1 of Justice League Unlimited, you had this whole plot line of Cadmus, this government organization run by Maria, I think her name is, not Maria, sorry, run by Amanda Waller, who is this, very powerful, like former CI, intelligence agent who basically runs that organization because she fears that the Justice League has too much power. And again, when you really look at it, it makes perfect sense. Why would the US government want there to be another organization that has more power than they have? I mean, some people are going to be paranoid regardless, just because of the level of power that they have, and they're going to make actions against it. They're going to try to do what they can to maintain control. So when you think of it like that, that makes perfect sense. And of course, this conflict with Cadmus made a massive, impact on the overall universe. It was very cool to see even some of the superheroes themselves having to choose between the US government and what, the Justice League represented, being, great and powerful and friendly superheroes who wanted to do good, just good for its, own sake, versus the interests of the US government. And that's always super interesting to explore. So that brought upon a lot of super interesting, super compelling conflict in that story alone. Of course, another one is Jinwoo and Solo Leveling. There's a lot of political games that start getting played amongst these different powerful hunter characters. And it becomes very interesting when you add in other countries like America and China, and how these hunters are basically, especially if they get to S-class, are basically living nukes in a lot of ways. And so whoever has the most S-class hunters becomes basically the world power. I think Japan is able to do that, or rather Korea is able to do that as well. In this case, this is specifically a Korean webtoon, but they're able to do that because I think that unlike Americans tend to look at the world as America. We are the biggest power in the world. And because of that, we don't really think about how someone of that power would affect other countries. Like if a Superman appeared, a lot of people throughout, the rest of the world would look at Superman as an American superhero because he is American. And because of that, they would say to themselves, I can't go to war or even make a big conflict with America, because if I do, who knows if Superman is going to join with them? He probably is going to join with their side. That's just what they think. It doesn't matter whether or not he would actually do that. What matters is what they believe he would do. And because of that, they'd have to, of course, find their own superhero. And of course, Jin Woo and the Solo Leveling story really goes into that, as people try to vie and grab their S-class superheroes. But that's not the only type of story you can tell with that. Two very similar type of stories were, Civil War, the MCU, when we saw that, again, superheroes made some mistakes. They had too much collateral damage, and the countries of the world came together to try to deal with that issue, to try to rein those superheroes in. I will admit that's a more Western, European, American sort of viewpoint on the issue, that the world would unite together and attempt to come over and try to stop this issue, rather than, different countries having their own separate programs to try to do things. Again, I would think that something like the MCU, you would definitely have, realistically, someone like China or Russia trying to find their own superhumans. You'd think that every single country would deal with a group like the mutants differently, or the same? Of course not. They would view it all differently. They would do their best that they possibly could to attempt to have their own superhero teams. They would not be fine with America having, the X-Men, the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the Defenders, other teams like that. They would not be fine with that. They'd be wanting to make their own superhero teams, both publicly and, of course, covertly. And I just think that would be a bigger issue. I love when that happens. Another great example of this, of that politics being involved in superheroes, again from Marvel, is the Kingdom Come storyline of Thor, or also known as the Reign arc. I call it the Asgard on Earth arc. That's what I call it, but it's called the Reign arc officially. And that was an arc within Thor comics when Odin at that point in time was dead, and Thor had the All-Father's power. And with that power, he chose to bring Asgard to Earth. He brought Asgard, this massive city of gods, right above New York City. And then he would move down and be a hero, even while being this super powerful Odin godlike figure. And he tried to solve a lot of humanity's problems. He tried to give them free energy using, Asgardian magic. He came with Asgardian medicine and healed all types of children. But the problem was that his very presence, just being in that world and being, again, you got to remember, Thor is supposed to be basically a heathen god in a predominantly Christian world or Muslim world as well. So you have all the other religions kind of having to deal with the fact that this heathen god, this Thor figure, exists. Now they have to fit that in. So you also got to look at how religion would be affected by some of these characters appearing. And it was a very cool exploration of the different things that can happen. One of the things that happened, and there became a cult, so to speak, or a new religion popped up of Thorist, who worshipped Thor as a god, as a deity, and they thought Thor Day was their day off. They petitioned to have that day off and respect their freedom of religion. And it was a very super interesting storyline. Again, religion, politics, all these things get involved. Thor, obviously being this heroic godlike figure, couldn't understand why he shouldn't be able to intervene whenever he wanted to, and whenever he wanted to. And obviously this brought him to conflict with not just the US government, but different world governments across the world. And just random individuals, mutants and other people like that also had problems with what Thor was doing. And it brought him into conflict eventually with even his own friends. So I think that's a very interesting thing to do, to add in not politics to superheroes, but add in superheroes to politics. Because again, a lot of these characters would be political, not because they want to be, but because politics would force them to be. Other countries, whether it be other countries attempting to make their own superheroes and challenge the overall power. I can imagine a country trying to, get their own superheroes, but eventually even wanting to go to war if they feel like they have the most powerful superheroes. They feel like, I have superheroes that are way more powerful than your group. I could defeat you and take you over. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happened. Superheroes fighting on the battlefield. We saw this with Captain America. Whether it be governments trying to rein in superhuman individuals, like we saw inside Civil War, or it be just, the government attempting to challenge superhuman individuals, have their own counter force to those guys, like we saw in Justice League and the Cadmus arc. I think that these types of ideas are just super cool to go into, and I love it every time they do it. Unfortunately, these days we don't do it as much. And again, a story like Invincible, for example, is more of a story of an outside threat, the Viltrumite threat coming in, versus it being the implications of having a super powerful human being be, on Earth, so to speak. The same thing goes for stories like The Boys and whatnot. But I would love to see more future stories where we add in, again, superheroes to politics. We allow them to see what would be the effect of something like that. I remember seeing a video where someone was talking about this guy, a YouTuber by the name of Classic Man D, this shout out to him. But he made a video about how if he had the powers of Juggernaut, this super powerful, super strong character who's basically invincible, that he could definitely just walk into Congress and tell them to figure stuff out, And the thing is, if a superhero did that, what would you be able to do about it? More importantly, would you make, different safeguards to try to stop that from happening? Because while even with superheroes don't want to be political, you definitely can't deny that there would be some people who would get superpowers who would be or want to be political. And that could be very interesting. Imagine a political movement starting around a superhero who wants to change things. That's all super interesting things that can be added in there without ultimately adding in social issues. I think social issues would be added in there eventually, but I think there would be a secondary concern to the pure power of these characters. Again, I think power and politics are not just inextricably linked together, but they're almost inseparable from each other. If you don't have power, you can't enforce your political will. And superheroes or superpowered individuals, whether it be from space, from a different culture up in space, or it be, from, literal gods, or it be regular humans just getting superhuman abilities. All that stuff just throws the balance of power out of whack. And to see different countries having to grapple with that, to see different people having to grapple with that change of power, that change of worldview that would bring, that's just my favorite thing ever. I would love to see that. For those of you who haven't watched part 1 of my I Want Superheroes in My Politics, well, first go see that video. It's one of my best. And in it, I explain in depth the distinction between superheroes and politics and superheroes. But the TLDR of it is that very few people are actually in favor of having modern politics, social, economic, or otherwise, injected into their entertainment that includes, of course, superheroes. But, however, superheroes, especially the powerful ones, are almost inherently political because all governments and governance is based upon power. And when there are individuals on either side of the law who have more power than entire militaries, they will impact politics. And in return, politics will impact them. And the stories that can be told when politics and superheroes collide can be absolutely incredible. In my previous video on this subject, I talked about some of my favorite stories that dealt with this particular subject matter. And in this video, I'm going to categorize the 3 main types of stories that can be told when you inject superheroes into politics.
For the past 4 years, you've operated with unlimited power and no supervision. That's an arrangement the governments of the world can no longer tolerate.
This is the most popular type of political superhero story, mostly because this is what would logically happen, or at least the most likely thing to logically happen in a superhero world. It makes sense that governments, whether they be local, national, or even international, would attempt to regulate, control, and even at times outright ban superpowered individuals, usually under the reasoning of holding superheroes accountable for the collateral damage that they cause in their battles against evil. Think Captain America, Civil War's Sokovia Accords, but it could be just as easily be the fact that they're just afraid of the sheer power of the superheroes or the villains have at their disposal. Think the Justice League Unlimited and their Season 1 conflict with the government organization known as Cadmus. Stories like these can explore the role of governments and what they should have in the superhero world, if any role at all. And they make for some very engaging conflicts on both sides of the aisle. Both sides have valid critics, which makes it ultimately a philosophical question. On the other hand, the next type of superhero political story is much more of a moral question.
Doom is protected under diplomatic immunity. Unless he does something wrong, we can't touch him.
The second most popular political superhero story is in fact one of the most underutilized. You see, the idea of coming into conflict with a foreign country controlled, ruled, or governed by a superpowered individual is a story idea that is so rich with potential. Some of the biggest superhero universes have dabbled with this idea. DC's Atlantis is an underwater kingdom ruled by Aquaman, and it often gets into conflicts with the rest of the world, as does their Kondark, another fictional kingdom in the DC universe ruled by Black Adam. Marvel does this in a similar way with their own Atlantis ruled by Namor, or Namor as he is called in Wakanda Forever. But the way that the superheroes have to treat Latveria and its supreme leader, Dr. Doom, is more towards what I'm talking about here. The idea of an evil or simply antagonistic superpowered leader of an opposing nation being in a conflict with a superhero is just so incredibly interesting, especially when fighting said antagonistic person would essentially be in an act of war. An act of allowing a known supervillain to rule over a innocent country simply because we don't want to risk war with them, is that morally permissible? That's such an interesting question in of itself. What if one of our superhero powered friends decide to take over an opposing country? Should we stop them? Should we bring them in? I believe the possibilities of this type of story remains untapped to this day. Again, they've dabbled in it, but they never really gone further and gone deeper into what it could actually be. However, the third and final political superhero story has a much more explored version, but that said, it may yet have the most interesting questions of them all.
You built these weapons to destroy us. Why? You're right to fear us. We are the future. We are the ones who will inherit this earth.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't this the same thing as the control and regulation argument? Well, yes and no. Yes, these domestic and oppressive political superhero stories are similar to control and regulation-based stories, but it is the context that separates them. You see, governments of C and R-based stories typically still believe somewhat in the idea of superheroes, which is why they are attempting to regulate them in the first place. Think the My Hero Academia universe in which superheroes and superpowers are highly regulated and controlled. Meanwhile, in the D and O based stories, the government is opposed to the very idea of superheroes and superpowered individuals, or at least superpowered individuals of a certain group entirely. Think about how Marvel's mutants are treated within the various Marvel universe, or even the way that the Galactic Empire within Star Wars treats Force-sensitive individuals during their reign. In these types of superhero stories, the superpowers and their individuals who possess them are seen as morally wrong by a vast amount of people simply for the fact that they have superpowers. And as a result, the supervillains within these stories are more like Magneto from the X-Men, when they are viewed almost like civil rights leaders. But at the same time, there's still plenty of debate to be had here. After all, if you found out that a kid in the school that you go to, or perhaps if you're older, in the school that your kid went to, had the powers to blow up the entire school at a whim, or could control people's minds, or even have the power of X-ray vision, you would certainly have some misgivings about that. And that is really what makes these stories where superheroes and politics collide so interesting. Because no matter what type of story is your personal favorite here, one underlying theme runs through all of them. Whether there are millions of superpowered individuals or merely a handful of solidly powerful ones in the world in the current way that society functions will have to be changed in some way, whether big or small. And seeing that change is interesting, and to see it done in unexpected ways is entertaining, which is why we watch in the first place. And really, that is what makes stories where superheroes and politics collide so interesting. Because no matter what type of story is your personal favorite here, there is one underlying theme that runs through them all. Whether there are millions of superpowered individuals or merely a handful of really powerful ones in the world, the current way in which society functions will be changed in some way, whether big or small. And seeing that change that can be done in interesting and unexpected ways is pretty entertaining, which is why we watch in the first place. What's up, Tiger Pack? It's your boy Black Tiger Talks, here to talk about Politics of Power Part 3. And the reason why I'm making this video, as you notice, is a quick talk. And the reason why is very simple. Ultimately, I forgot one thing I wanted to talk about in Part 2. And that thing is the fight scenes. I wanted to talk about the types of fights that can happen when you make superheroes meet politics like this. And one of the things, of course, within each and every single version you find is you have fights versus, of course, superpowered individuals. So within the first version, control and regulation, you have the possibility to have battles between the superheroes who are on the control side and the superheroes who are on the regulation side, because the issue becomes so divisive that you're going to have superheroes join the government side and fight against superheroes who are on the, more freedom or anti-government side, whatever you want to call it. You're going to have superheroes be on both sides, and the battles the superheroes will have against each other can be quite interesting, because one of the main points about superheroes in general is that usually they have a certain amount of powers or abilities that makes it very difficult for normal police officers, normal military, people to take them down. And thus, usually you end up having to either create new, more powerful weapons to take them down or use other superpowered beings, which in this case of the control and regulation version, you would see them usually make other superpowered beings, not make them, but, get them to do it for them, to take down these other, rebel superhero groups out of the way. So that's one of the best things about the control and regulation version, is that you see that take place. But the second version, of course, when you got the opposite of control regulation, not the opposite, but you know what I mean. When you have the idea of the superheroes with a foreign conflict, those versions, you still have a similar idea. You have the people who want to stop you from making an international incident, which could be superheroes on your team or superheroes working for the government. The government doesn't want you to get involved in this version, on this foreign affair. You also have the opposite way, where the government wants you to get involved in some type of foreign affair, and you, as a superhero, doesn't want to. And, you might try to stop them, and vice versa. That's a really interesting storyline to tell when it comes to main characters and whatnot, to have that conflict. Then, of course, the conflict with the superheroes or superpowered individuals who are part of that foreign sphere. That's also really interesting to really look into that, because now you get to fight versus those characters, see their reasoning for why they're supporting this foreign nation or a foreign nation controlled by superheroes. Think Black Panther and the Dora Milaje and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of interesting stories that can be told in that version as well. And then, of course, for the final version, superheroes versus the government, that type of version of it, where you have the oppression version. That one, you have a new dynamic instead. Usually, since the government is actually directly opposed to superheroes, or at least superhero groups, they're going to be trying to do their own thing. They're going to be trying to either do 3 different types of forces they may fight against for our protagonists. And what you're going to find is either the government makes, their own technology-based weapons to defeat, these superpowered individuals. Whether it be like some type of superhero virus. That's something that's pretty not popular, but it's fairly popular. You do the classic robotics type situation, whether it be a mech or, you know, robots like the Sentinels and so on from the X-Men and whatnot. And then finally, what you have also is you have they're making their own human weapons, whether they make human weapons based upon, you know, taking some of these superheroes, superpowered individuals and mind controlling them, or having a couple of those superpowered individuals actually work for them. You know, usually just being traitors to their group, but regardless, that's something that also happens. And there's the third option, of course, which is that they create their own using different serums and other scientific things. So there's a lot of interesting things that can take place when you do either one of these three, whether it be the oppression one, the control one, or the foreign affairs type of one. All of these ones have very interesting fights that can take place, and they all have their own interesting dynamics, which again is why I love the idea so much. So yeah, this is just a quick little talk about the things I missed and things I wish I had said a little bit further. So yeah, anyway, you know, that's the video. Like and subscribe for further content. Comment down below, and I thank you guys for supporting me on my journey to 100. Until next time, I'll be seeing you guys in another video.
Through a dream underneath the stars, laughing till the morning comes.